The movie opens with 27-year-old Billy talking to a tube of sunscreen while floating around in a swimming pool. Moments later, he approaches his two friends asking them to remind him of something important he is supposed to do, but they are too drunk to be of any help. Billy remembers it's magazine day, the day he is to receive copies of his favorite adult magazines, so he jumps out of the water, grabs his shirt and hops into a cart which he drives carelessly till he gets to the gate. On reaching the gate, he happily grabs the magazines from the letterbox and quickly scans for one to read. He quickly makes a decision, and while reading, he suddenly looks up to see a big penguin standing right in front of him. It turns out Billy is the only one seeing the penguin because the gardener tells him that there is nothing in the compound. Billy ignores the gardener and starts to pursue the penguin. He drives around the compound, chasing the invisible bird till he reaches the entrance to the house where his father's business associates are waiting to be invited inside. In an attempt to finally catch the penguin, Billy collapses in front of the door. The family's housekeeper Juanita opens the door and invites the businessmen in, after which she pulls Billy up from the ground. She tells him that tonight's dinner is very important, so he should be on his best behavior. Billy's father, Brian Madison, walks into the dining room where everyone is waiting for him. He introduces his executive vice president, Eric Gordon, and his operations manager, Carl Alphonse. While the men settle to begin the dinner, Billy is in his bathroom simulating a conversation between his shampoo and conditioner. Moments later, he arrives at the dinner table and immediately starts to eat his soup. Billy makes small talk with Carl, harasses one of the guests, and when Eric takes a jab at him, he has an outburst. Eric makes a funny face at Billy, and Billy responds by speaking gibberish. Brian, Billy's father, tells him not to speak gibberish at the table, and Billy apologizes. As Brian continues his announcement, Eric makes another face at Billy, which elicits another outburst from him. At this point, Brian is offended by his son's behavior, so he asks Billy to leave the table. Billy continues to speak gibberish until he leaves the dining room. After dinner, Brian, Eric, and Carl are playing pool while discussing Billy. Carl doesn't think Billy is an idiot, while Eric thinks he isn't mature enough to run his father's company. Brian talks about how he and his late wife started out by owning a small motel and how they had expanded their business into a chain of over 650 hotels with the dream of handing the empire over to their only son. After leaving the dinner with his father, Billy goes to have dinner with his friends. On the way back, they see animal droppings on the ground and proceed to scoop it into a paper bag. Billy takes the bag to an old couple's front door, sets the bag on fire, presses the doorbell, and runs away to hide behind a bush patch. Old man Clement opens the door and tries to put the fire out with his boots, only to realize he just stepped on poop and is infuriated. Billy and his friends are amused by his reaction and laugh so hard. At home, Brian tells Billy that he has big news for him. In a meeting with Billy, Eric, and Carl present, Brian talks about how Billy was spoiled growing up and blames himself for Billy turning out the way he has. Brian tells Billy that he is retiring and that Eric would take over the company and not him. Billy doesn't like the sound of that and tells his dad that he knows he could take over the company if he sets his mind to it. He makes a reference to how high school was hard, but he made it through, but his father tells him that he paid his teachers to give him good grades. Billy asks his dad to give him one more chance to prove he can take over the company. He says he would go back to first grade, take the exams, and get a diploma all by himself. Billy says he will attend each grade for 2 weeks, regraduate, and prove to his dad that he can take over the company. Eric tries to dissuade Brian from agreeing with Billy, but Brian likes the idea and tells Carl to make the necessary arrangements. On Monday morning, Billy gets ready for school and waits for the school bus to pick him up, but the bus drives right past him. Brian later drives Billy to school. The first grade teacher, Miss Lippy, introduces Billy to the class, and the children welcome him with hugs. Billy and children settle down for story time, but by the time the teacher finishes the book, Billy is the only pupil that is awake. The next activity of the day is dodgeball, but Billy returns to the class and finds his teacher dancing. Ms. Lippy tells Billy to remain outside till dodgeball time is over. In response, Billy indeed goes outside and joins the game till lunchtime, where he tries to exchange his banana for a snack pack. Eric is seen in his office talking to a lab rat and plotting to eliminate Billy so that he can take over the company. The days pass by and Billy does well in school and passes the first grade, so Brian throws a small party for Billy and his first grade classmates. To aid his plot, Eric hires the school's janitor to spy on Billy and report his progress. Billy wins a spelling bee to pass second grade, and Brian throws him another party, but this seems to offend Eric. When Billy reaches the third grade, the teacher, Miss Veronica, tells the class that Billy is a nuisance and that he would be gone in 2 weeks, but Billy isn't offended by this. Miss Veronica later kicks him out of the class for making fun of another student and threatens to fail him if he does it again. The next day in class, Billy is doodling in his notebook when the teacher calls him to write some words in cursive on the board. When he doesn't spell a word correctly, the children laugh at him, so he runs out of class. The next day, Billy pretends to be sick in order to avoid school school, but when Juanita asks him to help shave her armpits, Billy decides he would rather go to school. Miss Veronica isn't in school, so Principal Anderson takes over her class and the students make fun of him. The third graders are going on a field trip with Miss Veronica. Billy tells his classmates that he's trying to score points with the teacher and so they shouldn't screw it up. One student dares him to touch her. Billy gets up and moves to Miss Veronica's seat. He pretends to be falling and uses it as an excuse to touch her. Miss Veronica remains calm and makes him understand that she knows what he tried to do. Billy later apologizes to Miss Veronica for his failed attempt to touch her inappropriately. Later, Billy ends up wetting his pants to help his classmate overcome the shame of peeing his pants. Billy makes it through the third grade and there's another party to celebrate his graduation. Miss Veronica attends the party and gives Billy a box of snack packs. Billy and Veronica spend time together in his makeshift apartment made of tents outside the house. The two are about to share a kiss, but they are interrupted by Carl, who tells Billy that Eric is up to something. Eric continues to track Billy as he makes it through the grades. Finally, a desperate Eric tracks down Principal Anderson and makes a deal with him. It's the first week in high school and Billy is not making any friends. Instead, he is being bullied, but he doesn't take it to heart. During his free time, Billy visits his friends in third grade and Veronica, who encourages him to stay strong and not mind how he's being treated. That night, Billy calls one of his former classmates, Danny, and apologizes to him for treating him badly. The classmate accepts his apology, crosses off Billy's name on his people to kill list. The next day, Billy, his father and his friends are watching TV together. On the news, Principal Anderson is telling the press that the only reason Billy passed elementary school is because he offered the principal a bribe of $5,000. Brian believes the news and is mad at Billy. He calls the deal off and tells him Eric has got the company. Billy is saddened by the situation and spends the next few days playing and acting out. One night, Billy goes to visit Veronica in his drunken state. Veronica tells him that she doesn't believe that he bribed the principal. Billy walks into the house and sees the imaginary penguin again, so he leaves. The next morning, Veronica finds Billy sleeping outside. Veronica tells him to stop being an idiot and go back to school, graduate and get the company back, but Billy says he doesn't want the company anymore. She encourages him to stop being a loser and attempt to win. The next day, Billy's friends in the third grade visit the principal at his house. They question him about his statement to the press. Bowing to the pressure, Mr. Anderson returns to the press and confesses that he lied against Billy, and this infuriates Eric. Brian is not happy about the situation, and it's worse because no one can find Mr. Anderson. Eric tries to save face by telling Brian that he believed in Billy, but Billy is not having any of it. Brian wants Billy to return to school, but Eric disagrees, saying the deal was for Billy to finish each grade in 2 weeks or he gets the company. When Brian refuses to hand Eric the company, Eric tells him that they would see each other in court. Billy stops Eric in his tracks and dares him to settle the score with him without the need for lawyers. Billy proposes an academic decathlon where they would both be tested on all the knowledge one is supposed to learn throughout high school. They both agree to do it, although Brian is a little skeptical. Billy gathers all the books he can get and starts to study for the decathlon. Veronica helps him study. On the D-Day, Billy and Eric set out to compete in 10 different courses including science, home economics, language, music and sports. The final event of the decathlon arrives and the students are very excited to see the end of the competition. The announcer states that Billy is ahead by 1 point. In the last event, each competitor will choose the subject for his opponent and Eric has been asked to choose one for Billy. Eric chooses the topic, The Reflections of Society on Literature, thinking Billy wouldn't know anything about it. To his surprise, Billy answers the question by using the story his first grade teacher read on his first day of school. When he finishes, the students are excited and give him a round of applause, but the organizer states that Billy has made everyone in the room dumber by his incoherent ramblings and awards him no points for his answer. He then asks Billy to choose a topic for Eric, so Billy chooses business ethics. Eric seems to have no idea about business ethics, so he pulls out a gun from his suit, causing the students to flee the hall. Eric rages on and points the gun at Billy, who immediately takes cover. He then turns the gun to face Veronica, but Principal Anderson comes to her rescue. Danny, Billy's former classmate, comes into the scene and shoots Eric in the butt. In the last scene, it's graduation day and Billy gives a speech. He states that the hotel business is not for him, so he hands the company over to Carl. He announces that he is going to go to college and become a teacher. The movie ends with Billy and Veronica kissing.
Thank you for watching. It may be easy for you to like and subscribe, but it means the world to us. Please subscribe for more movie recaps.